stress. This is for the startled and soft spoken, for all the tears cried into the oceans, and for those ready to awaken from self infliction torture. There's always more to life to live, and in the end, most will appreciate that they did.
And we are going to dial back because I just saw a moment or two ago that something happened with our connection to our live stream. So if you don't mind, we'll just dial back just a little bit and probably reset and just share again. Today we have with us this Monica Leek, your host for PharSide Pholios. I'm glad that you could join us on today. For those who are watching with us on live on Facebook and on Leek Poetry on YouTube, thank you for joining us today. We've got our special guest, Kiante Phelps-Woods, who is the author of Dismantled Damsel. And she is from Houston, Texas, born and raised, and came to writing through the influence of her mother and grandparents. She's got a degree from Houston Community College and now spends her time just crafting and writing these unique and inspiring works of poetry, and hopes to have a lasting impression on future generations. So she just showed you the cover of Dismantled Damsel, which is her debut collection of poetry. And I'd like for her to share with us, those who are watching live and by replay, the inspiration behind it.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me today, Miss Monica. It's truly a pleasure. The inspiration behind Dismantled Damsel, it being my debut poetry collection, it encompasses themes of womanhood, adolescence, and coming of age. So, Dismantled Damsel, basically coming undone to come back into yourself. Sometimes it takes some shedding for you to bloom. And I wanted to expand on the dark phases of womanhood that into Zan Shige, the author of Four Color Girls, started. I wanted to continue the conversation that she began with her collection of poetry.
And so, how long have you been writing poetry, and when did you kind of realize, okay, this is my space? I found my space. I've found my niche. I'm in a zone. This is my zone of work.
Absolutely. So I've been writing since I was about in second grade. I started with children's books. I had a friend that I would make pictures with, and we do our best to spell the words. And I'd come home and try to make the books on the Word documents. But I gravitated towards poetry about 8 years ago, at the beginning of my freshman year in high school. I had the opportunity to read A Raisin in the Sun, which begins with a poem by Langston Hughes. And that was one of the first times that I was moved by poetry and gravitated towards it for my own self. As mentioned before, I am influenced by my mother, who's written poetry for my whole life, and my grandmother, who actually wrote and bounded her own book of poetry. She never published it, but she did have enough to make her own book. And that was something that I kept in the back of my mind. So it came to me that I wanted to be a poet and wanted to make my mark in the poetry world sometime in high school.
Beautiful. I mean, there's, this connection of um, thinking about writing, being exposed to writing through our educational process, and being able to team and work together, and then the influence, of those before you, and not necessarily just through reading, but through your family connections, having that gift present. And that's such a beautiful addition to your own thread, your poetry writing thread, to say that the influence of your mother and the influence of your grandmother, although she didn't publish. So is would you consider, are her work still, does you have samples of her work still out there? So is there something that, of your grandmother's, um, that you would be able to publish yourself?
Yes, it's still available, and that's something that I love about my grandmother. She's not someone who throws anything away, so it's still bounded. She's not, and I consider them artifacts of my ancestors at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's a beautiful thing for me to be able to go back and really identify with where she was at the time in her writing, or even where my grandfather was at the time of his writing, because he's no longer with me. And even he passed around the time when I actually really embraced writing creatively for myself. So to go back and be able to look at the creativity that really flows through me and before me is something that I hold dear to hold dear to myself. So one day it may come out as a publication. I mean, it's still in my grandmother's control. Um, but I wanted to take my creative liberty and
Mm-hmm.
release Dismantled Damsel and really put myself out there for my family name,
Mm-hmm.
for my legacy.
So do you find that there's a common thread, or theme, that you gravitate to, in your poetry?
Absolutely. In my poetry, I explore themes of womanhood, adolescence, even struggle, self torture, self healing, self destruction. Again, Dismantled Damsel is about coming apart only to come back to yourself even better than before. So it's definitely, it's been described as an emotional roller coaster, but it's one that is definitely enlightening for the reader.
So in terms of like structure and style and form, what is something that you kind of lean to, um, in your pieces?
Something that I mainly lean towards in my poetic pieces is a rhyme scheme where my words are rhyming. That was kind of my introduction to poetry. Something else that happened in high school, there were poets like Rupi Kapoor and R.H. Sin who came out who kind of developed this style of micro poetry where it's a little bit shorter but is still a complete complexing thought. And that is something that I also have experimented with. But
Mhm.
you're going to find a majority of rhyme scheme in my work. That's what I gravitate towards.
So what is something that you feel, you know, grab, you know, grabs people with poetry, or um, how has poetry given you voice?
I feel like poetry has allowed me to amplify the voice within myself in a passionate and pure way. I didn't always share my poetry publicly, but whenever I did, I saw the movement that I had with people. People would just, they would say, whoa, like that. That's a lot, even to come from myself. So poetry gives me an amplified voice of power and passion. Um,
Well, since your voice is being amplified through poetry, and this is National Poetry Month, the month of April, can you share one of your favorite pieces from your work, with those who are watching live and those who will catch this by replay?
Absolutely. And again, my name is Camp Woods. You can purchase Dismantled Damsel on Amazon and Lulu.com. You can follow me on Instagram or Facebook for more information. I'm going to go ahead and share the first piece included in the collection titled Awaken. Again, Dismantled Damsel, I wanted to continue the conversation that began in Four Colored Girls, and Awaken was actually inspired by Four Colored Girls. So I'm going to go ahead and read it and allow it to marinate a little bit. Okay. This is an ode addressed to women and daughters who found themselves dismantled by fractured relationships with lovers and fathers, who unwillingly sacrificed their sanity to become mothers and eventually martyrs. This is to the many Black women who are suffering and depressed, to the masses of dark damsels dying in distress. This is for the startled and soft spoken, for all the tears cried into oceans. and for those ready to awaken from self inflicting torture. There's always more life to live, and in the end, most will appreciate that they did.
Awesome. So definitely those who are watching live, those who are joining us to, listen in studio, definitely, put your, questions, or thoughts into the chat. And um, as something comes to mind, and let's continue this conversation with this amazing author, Camp Woods, who's talking about poetry and movement, and you know this process of having an amplified voice and the threads and stories that come forth through our poetry. um, and you mentioned that when you started out, you didn't share your poetry, um, or read it out loud. So, what brought you to the place where you were ready to not only publish, but to bring voice, and step up to the mic, so to speak, to share your work?
Absolutely. So I began really compiling and composing this poetry collection around 2018,
Mm.
between the years of 2018 to 2020, shortly after I graduated high school. And I did want to explore publicly performing my poetry. However, I was still just gaining my own confidence and even crafting my work, finding my voice. So I feel like I had to really take some time to find my voice before I could use it. And now, at this time in my life, I feel I have found my voice. I have found myself, and I'm ready to step outside myself and really just move the needle forward for my legacy for myself. I think it's time. I really do think it's time. It's a wonderful time.
So, and that speaks to the theme in your work, that journey of coming of age and coming of into yourself, all of the kind of highs and lows, um, and discovery, um, processes that happen in womanhood, that brings us into our own space, brings us into discovering our voice. So um, I think your voice is being amplified, and we're excited about hearing a new voice. And for those who are just joining us now, we are live with author Camp Woods of Dismantled Damsel, which is a powerful collection of poetry. It is her debut um, poetry collection, so we're very excited about her work. So, talk to us about that writing journey, from gathering, the pieces together to published product.
So the journey, that is a journey within itself. So again, I began compiling the poetry for this collection about 4 years ago in 2018. At first, it took to the point of me having to write enough work. I knew that I wanted the collection to be somewhere in between 40 to 60 poems. I, the final count, I believe, is 40 poems in total, or it's more than 40 pages. And I also wanted to include illustrations in my work. I had to come to the point to decide if I was going to illustrate them, or if I was going to be able to outsource an illustrator. So it really began with first compiling the poetry, and finalizing what I was going to include in the collection. And then it came to the point of finding an illustrator. There was a couple different options that I explored, but I did ultimately end up working with the amazing Vanessa Kaiser, who did the illustrations that are included in Dismantled Damsel. You can check them out inside, or on my Instagram. You can just get an idea of the graphics that are included into my work. And from the illustrations, it was also formatting the book. And that's something else that I did myself. I had to find a platform to correctly format it, and then finding a direct publisher. So there was also a few steps, and then also the last step, which is kind of a bonus step, is developing a marketing plan. As a self-published author, you are taking the responsibility of your product into your own hands. So doing things like this podcast, or just really trying to branch out from my audience of my close friends and family to the whole world. Um, so again, it's been a journey of confidence, of grammar, of so much. But here we are, and Dismantled Damsel is finished and ready for the homes of everyone. Anyone who's looking to add a new poetry collection by a debut author to their shelf, you're more than welcome to purchase on my site at lulu.com or Amazon.
And so you heard it here first. And you'll hear more from Camp Woods. We definitely are enjoying her voice here with us today on PharSide Pholios. And as you spoke about your writing process, from formatting, from Illustrator, to the marketing, that you took yourself as a self-published author. What are some 3 tips that you could provide for aspiring poets who may be looking to publish or to perform?
3 tips that I'd give to aspiring poets or even authors that are looking to perform or publish their work is number 1, harness your confidence. Confidence is a really, it's a fragile thing. I'd say, like, having the confidence to perform, go up on stage, even publish your work, that's something that not a lot of people are able to hold on to or develop for themselves. So if you're somebody who is interested in performing or publishing, definitely just harness that idea and run with it. The second thing that I would recommend is to don't stop writing. The more that you continue to write, the better that you're going to get. Practice, practice, practice. Put in your 10,000 hours, as they say. You're only going to get better the more that you try. And thirdly is to expand your market. Don't be afraid to get out there and network. Go to different poetry readings. Go to bookstores. Talk to people in your market. Really, just don't be afraid to be yourself. And the time is now. It's never been easier to be a self-published author or to be a poet, whether you just want to perform on social media or if you want to perform at coffee houses. The world is yours to seize, and I'm excited to meet more people in my own network.
Well, you definitely gave us, as audience viewers, those who watch, who are avid readers, those who are budding authors and poets, some golden nuggets to pin and make sure that we write down and recall to remembrance, as far as harnessing our craft and building that confidence to get out there and do it. And so thank you for those nuggets. And so now that you're a published author, you have a social media presence, what is something that you would like to see happen with this work beyond the book form? Now that you've got this book in book form, available on Amazon, available on Lulu, what is something else that you hope will happen with this work, or you'd like to see happen?
Thank you. That's another great question. I would say, since I was younger, let's say about 10 years old, when Twilight came out and I realized that they make movies for books, or like you can get your book made into a movie, that's always attracted me. That's been a very attractive idea to me. And with For Color Girls becoming a major motion picture picked up by Tyler Perry, and I believe 2010, that was also huge for the poetry world. And I'd love to do something similar and follow in the footsteps of those before me. And with that being said, Dismantled Damsel, I'd love for it to be produced into a more performative, poetic work, whether it be on stage or in a motion picture. But more is to come in the future. Right now, it is available in physical form, paperback, and I will be doing some readings just like the one that we did here. But I definitely look forward to the future of Dismantled Damsel and just continuing with the creativity of this overall message. Because as women, we continue to grow.
So, what are some, you talk about womanhood and coming of age and, um, all of those phases of womanhood. What are some other things that you're looking to explore in your writing in the future?
Another great question. So I did mention earlier that I'm not just limited to poetry as my only form of
Hmm.
writing. I do plan on releasing some nonfiction work. Currently, I am working on a book. Just working title is the ABCs of Feminine Wellness. It's a nonfiction book to expand on more of the illnesses or ailments that women may experience because believe it or not, there are a lot of situations where women don't even have the language to speak to their doctor about certain issues that they are concerned with, whether it may be fibroids or
Hmm.
PCOS or endometriosis. These are terms that some women don't even know. Menstruating women don't even know, but are affected by it on a daily basis. So having a book to bridge the gap between the language and just having it all in one place is something that I'm working on. I'd love my work to, again, be impactful for generations to come and to be useful for everyone.
Do you feel that poetry itself will be um, you'll come back to poetry having, you've got this collection and then you're moving into doing some nonfiction. You spoke about interest as well as in, doing some children's books. Do you think poetry will continue to be something that will be a thread or a part of your writing?
Yes, definitely. Again, with poetry being an activity that my mother participated in, her mother, my grandmother, my grandfather, her father participated in, I feel like poetry is a part of my legacy. And being able to explore poetry for different audiences, even for children, like Shel Silverstein did with Where the Sidewalk Ends and his mini collections, is something that I definitely want to do. I don't plan to stop writing until my heart stops. So there'll definitely be works of all varieties coming from me.
Well, we're so excited that we were able to have you join us on today. Is there another piece that you'd like to share um, with our audience?
You know what? That's a great question. I can actually go ahead and share another piece. This one's titled Time Bomb. This one is a little bit darker, but just to give an example of some of the other themes, just aside from womanhood and coming of age, that the Dismantled Damsel does explore. And again, you can purchase my debut poetry collection on Amazon and Lulu, or you can find me on Instagram and Facebook for more information about how you can purchase your physical copy. And this is Time Bomb. My back is against a wall that's scheduled for demolition. What's your mission when you're invading my vision? I thought the glass was half full, but you assured me that it's empty. You filled the circles under my eyes, but I can't tell if more of the bruises are coming from your hands or mine. With no exit sign or no warning, how do I escape when I'm free falling?
Snap, snap, snaps in the air, in the air. Thank you to our live, those who are watching live and those who are catching um, us by replay. Sharice made a comment about loving, um, about what she spoke about bridging the gap for women to have the right grammar to speak to their doctors and, having the correct language. Lana Hooks, who's the managing editor of the Far Side, Coed Book Club talks about your work sounding intergenerational, with a family that writes. Your voice is layered with those before you, but definitely your style, focus, voice, and purpose. Just excellent piece. And then we've got those who have joined us in studio. So we're thankful for those who watching live, and those who will catch the replay. Those who kind of joined us um, in the studio audience, Craig and Tanya, who joined us in the studio audience. I'm not sure if they have anything they want to ask. They can put it, type into the chat if they'd like to. If they'd like to say something, or if they'd like to come on live, we could definitely invite them on if they want to, join in the conversation and join us live. But we're definitely glad to have them as a part of this experience with us. And again, thank you for sharing the range, of your work, with the piece that you shared with Awaken, and the one you just lastly shared, just showing a range of your content. And that's what poetry does. It has no limits. It speaks to that which brings us joy, and the challenges, the sorrow, the happy times, the dark times. So this is National Poetry Month, and for our live viewers and replay audiences, it's also Drop Everything and Read month. So if you're going to drop everything and read, let's go to lulu.com. Let's go to amazon.com and support new authors, and support this wonderful, amazing woman, this gifted woman, Camp Woods, with purchasing Dismantled Damsel. Dismantled Damsel. That's your assignment today. Happy National Poetry Month. Go to Amazon. Go to Amazon right now. Go to Lulu, or go to lulu.com right now. Find Dismantled Damsel and get this collection of poetry to kick off National Poetry Month. How else can we celebrate National Poetry Month than by supporting our poets and reading and engaging in some thoughtful poetry that moves us and makes us think, makes us pause and reflect. So we're so excited about Kiante Phelps-Woods and her work. When I say that, representation matters, what do you think? What does that mean to you, especially as an author, a woman of color? As we just, ended Women's History Month, and now we're into National Poetry Month.
That's an excellent question. And when you say representation matters, what it means to me is me seeing my grandmother with her bounded book, although not on a bookshelf. It's there, it exists, and me feeling like I can do it too. Representation to me means me doing this and inspiring my younger sisters, my cousins, the girls who are looking up to me and who also want to use their voice but may have never been introduced to poetry before. There are opportunities and poets out there. Again, I didn't even read Raisin in the Sun until I was in ninth grade, and that was an assignment. And I might not have had the chance to explore or even express myself if that not had happened. So by creating these books, by speaking on these platforms, by showing people who I am and who they are, that is what representation mattering means to me. And I hope that you guys definitely enjoyed Time Bomb and Awaken. The collection is filled with other great pieces, other great moving pieces that really take you on a journey from start to finish, coming undone and coming back into yourself. And that is Dismantled Damsel, again available on Amazon and Lulu. If you're going to drop everything and read Dismantled Damsel.
Well, thank you. We'd like to thank I'd like to thank my guest, Kiante Woods, for sharing her gift of poetry with us on today. How can people connect with you on social media?
You can find me on Instagram and Facebook. Facebook is just my name, Kiante Phelps-Woods. Instagram is Camp Woods, which is KampWoods. You guys are more than welcome to connect with me. I love reading reviews and just getting to know everyone. Thank you again for the opportunity, Miss Monica. And yeah, I'm just so excited to be a part of this platform and this opportunity.
Well, again, we thank you for sharing your time and your gift and talent with us on this afternoon. And we wish you continued success, not only with Dismantled Damsel, but with all the projects that you have to come. For those who are watching live and those who will come back and catch the replay, we want you to make sure you're staying tuned to the PharSide Coed Book Club Facebook page for more author interviews and posts as we celebrate this amazing April with National Poetry Month, School Library Month, and Drop Everything and Read Month. So until next time, many roots, many voices are a part of an infinite story. So plant your seed. Have a great and wonderful day.
Thank you. You have a great day as well. Thank you, everyone.